You know, if someone wants to give you money, then help them do that. And if they want to give you status and success, then help them do that, right? And you do that in part by bringing them solutions.
Hello everyone, I'm Hugo.
And I'm Jake.
Welcome to Hugo and Jake. We're back to read more of Jordan B. Peterson's 12 Rules for Life. We've gotten through rules 1 and 2, and today we're going to be looking at rule number 3, make friends with people who want the best for you.
Don't discount the preface that we did and also the preface to the preface we did. Because both of those I still felt. Like both of those still weigh upon me.
I know. And like most of the chapters in this book, if he stuck to the chapter title, hey, we'd be golden. It's not in what he has to say. Make friends with people who want the best for you. Good advice. It's how he decides to go about that raises some eyebrows. So today, we're going to talk about that.
It was cold where he grew up. So the beginning of this chapter starts out with Jordan talking about his life experience in the small town of Fairview, Alberta in Canada, which was very cold in the wintertime. It's basically a high desert, so it's got a lot of shit. He talks about cats and stuff, getting up into the engine blocks of places. He talks about how desolate. This would resonate with anyone that lived in a small town anywhere, really, especially middle America or just, rural Canada in general, since they're kind of spread out of the cities. I resonate with this a little bit, although I was only 15 minutes away from actual civilization. I grew up, I'm not joking, I can't see my childhood home on Google Maps because the trees are in the way. So I grew up basically in the woods. I ended up moving after my parents got divorced. I ended up moving a little bit closer and ended up being your neighbor. Yep. But before that, most of my life, this really rang true for me. It's cold in Michigan. Cats do die when they get up in the warm engine blocks of a vehicle, and then you start them later, and then the cats get torn up. That happens here.
He mentions it in the book.
Yeah, you gotta knock on the hood and stuff. So, like, the beginning of this sets up, I kind of knew where he was going, right? Because I know what his market is. His market is typically, let's say, underprivileged by way of faculty. Individuals, right? Or opportunity for education. Sure. Definitely not very economically well off, typically. Like, that's not for everybody, of course. No broad strokes. But, like, I think we get this very conservative bootstraps. I don't know how to put this. I know he's Canadian, but it's very Americana in the messaging. Yeah. Does that make sense?
We'll get into that more later when he actually... There wasn't much for people to do in Fairview, even in the summer, but the winters were much worse. Then your friends mattered, more than anything. I had a friend at the time, we'll call him Chris. He was a smart guy, he read a lot. He then goes on to talk about how Chris was an angry guy, and despite his intelligence, he was so angry and resentful, he was without hope. All this manifested itself in material form in the shape of his 1972 Ford pickup truck. That notorious vehicle had at least one dent in every quarter panel of its damaged external body. Worse, it had an equivalent number of dents inside. Those were produced by the impact of body parts of friends against the internal surfaces during the continual accidents resulted in the outer dents. Chris's truck was the exoskeleton of a nihilist.
Okay, I'm imagining you actually autistically measuring and calculating the amount of dents in your friend's car, when really you mean he was a shitty driver, and he didn't give a shit about you or his friends because he was irresponsible, and you're trying to paint it with this weird art that doesn't make any sense here?
It's because he's trying to, again, tie the anger to, and again, he uses this term a lot.
Nihilism?
Unjustifiably. Nihilism.
Wait. Did you hear that? No, only atheists can hear that. That's a dog whistle.
Yeah, what he's doing, essentially, when he uses the term nihilist, often it seems interchangeable with the word atheist or sinner. You see that a lot in his in his talk, like with Matt Dillahunty. I think he brings up nihilism quite a bit, especially in regard to...
By the way, he brings up Dostoevsky in this as well. Yeah. I have butchered that for some reason. Dostoevsky. Yeah, well, I said Dostoevsky. I just stumbled over it the first time. Anyway.
Like a drunk Russian. So anyway, he likes to use the term nihilism. Throw it around when it isn't applicable. There you go.
Yeah, well, I don't know why it doesn't apply. He's a bad driver and he's bored. Yeah. That doesn't make you a nihilist. He could be a nihilist and that. I'm just saying.
Not related.
Nihilism doesn't make you a bad driver.
He then goes on to say, every time Chris crashed his truck, his father would fix it and buy him something else. He had a motorbike and a van for selling ice cream. He did not care for his motorbike. He sold no ice cream.
What? He didn't sell any ice cream.
I just find that sentence funny. I don't have anything to criticize there.
He sold no ice cream.
He sold no ice cream.
Well, what he's doing is he's kind of like charging his friend here with the crime of ambivalence towards selling ice cream, meaning he had an opportunity to be a top lobster with his ice cream and chose not to be an ice cream lobster.
Who doesn't love ice cream? And lobsters.
I'm not a big fan of ice cream, but if it sold lobsters out of his truck, I'd be there for it.
Alright, so he goes on, and he talks for a little while more about his childhood friendships, his friendships with a couple of guys, some stuff about pot, but then he goes on, and we'll get into the pot stuff a little more specifically later, probably.
Yeah.
But here he describes his opinion on high school parties, which I find a little odd for a 56-year-old man to be this harping on high school parties. I did not like teenage parties. I do not remember them nostalgically. They were dismal affairs, the lights were kept low, that kept self-consciousness to a minimum. The over-loud music made conversation impossible. There was little to talk about in any case. There were always a couple of the town's psychopaths attending. Everybody drank and smoked too much. A dreary and oppressive sense of aimlessness hung over such occasions, and nothing ever happened. I take it you weren't invited to many parties, 'cause you seem like kind of a buzzkill.
Yeah, well, he also says he met his wife here.
Yeah!
And by the way, the one example of his wife's behavior he gives at the party is she was yelling at some guy. Now, I think he was trying to, he says, stab her with a knife?
Yeah.
What? What? Okay, if that's true, regardless, that's a fun story and you should retell it with joy. Because who the fuck has... You remember... Funny story about how we met. Oh, don't tell him, Steven. Carol, I'm going to tell the story. It's hilarious. They're going to love it. So anyway, she was going to get stabbed. And I was like, hey, don't stab her. And that's how we met. That's a good story. That's something you should look back at. I don't think any adult really, or any adult that isn't a creep, looks back at high school parties and goes, man, I wish I would get invited to a high school party this weekend. But you were in high school during the high school party. You can be happy for past 70 years ago, Jordan Peterson.
I just think it's odd to spend an entire paragraph shitting on high schoolers for being high schoolers.
Well, do you know what it is, though?
What? Oh my god, it's because he knows his audience isn't invited to parties, so he doesn't want them to feel bad. He wants them to be like, yeah, you don't want it. You're better than those people anyway.
Yes. That just hit you?
Oh my god!
Hit you like a fucking truck. Yeah. No, his audience. I mean, clearly, who his audience are either just about to start college and take one of his courses. Not gender studies. We're taking Jordan Peterson classes, or in high school and shit. Or maybe had the same experience as him. But yeah, no one that is conservative like this is really that fun at parties. I mean conservative like this. I don't mean conservative. I mean you know how there's the conservatives that have four-wheelers and drink Bud Light? They're fun at parties. I'll party with those guys all the time. You ever been to a NASCAR party? I don't like NASCAR. That shit's fun as fuck. I'll go to those all the time. They'll be wearing their MAGA hats. I'll be wearing my Hillary shirt. I don't own one, but I'll buy one for the event. And we're going to get drunk as fuck and have a great time. Play some beer pong. You know what his are? Smoking jackets and white nationalist pamphlets. I'm not saying he's a white nationalist. I actually don't know if he's racist. I don't think he's racist. But, you know who had the same parties as him? Spencer.
Who's Spencer who?
Spencer, punch face, Nazi Spencer.
Oh.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah, Richard Spencer. Dude, have you seen the documentary on Netflix where the woman goes?
Yes.
What kind of party was that?
Richard Spencer seems like I highly recommend.
Huge douchebag.
What is it called? It's on Netflix. It's
I forget what it's called.
It's a second-generation Indian immigrant woman.
Yep.
I believe was she from the UK?
I think so.
Yeah, and she goes to talk to a bunch of white nationalists and white supremacists, and it's very, very interesting. I highly recommend it on Netflix.
The first guy they show, the Charlottesville guy,
yeah.
I bet those are the redneck good partying guys. Then you go to the intelligent, we'll call it the rights aristocracy. That's the type of, the faux intellectual, the same people that, like, Ben Shapiro hangs out with, like, Dave Rubin. You get what I'm saying. You get the picture, I think, is in your head.
Richard Spencer talks a lot about, like, the legacy of Western society, which, by the way, is a thing that Jordan Peterson likes to talk about a lot, too. Dog whistles. He likes to talk about the superiority, not Jordan Peterson, I'm talking about, Punch Face guy again. He talks about, like, the superiority of white males because of, Western society.
On the backs of black folks, but...
It's just a really weird
Native
thing.
Americans and Mexicans and... I'm not saying... By the way, I'm not saying white people don't have a contribution to society. I'm just saying we don't have all the contribution to society. You know what I mean? Not everything that works is a white. You know what I'm saying?
Sure.
You know what I'm saying. Do you know what I'm saying?
Anyway, he goes on to say, doing anything wasn't cool. I don't know what teenage life was like before the revolutionaries of the late 60s advised everyone young to tune in, turn on, and drop out. Was it okay for a teenager to belong wholeheartedly to a club in 1955? Because it certainly wasn't 20 years later. Plenty of us tuned in and dropped out, but not so many tuned in. Takes a second to take a shot at the 60s. A time of some of the most expansionist growth in civil rights in Western civilization history. Whatever.
But, like...
This also isn't... I don't know necessarily what it was like in the 70s. Not my experience in high school. People were very involved in clubs and groups, and the most popular people were the ones that were most involved.
Yeah, and even beyond that, I understand... Like, even up to the 90s, I remember the 90s well.
Yeah.
People were one-strapping it, not wearing coats. Like, not doing homework and being blasé was cool. But, like, that's so old that the first remake of 21 Jump Street made that joke.
And that movie's, like...
That's, like, 10 years old.
8 years old at this point.
So what I'm saying is, like, now, like, politics and knowledge and, like, we'll call it activism, even though some of it's slacktivism. But, like, just being
what the kids would call
it's
woke.
It's not just woke. It's actually being active in your community. There's a big push by people of our age and younger that are very much for, like, look at what this older generation is doing. It's totally wrong. It's pulling up by the bootstraps, being individualistic. We're going to get into that all in this chapter. It's not building a community. It's building one-manship.
Yeah, it's not even building a society or maintaining a society.
It's building tiny little keeps, and you draw a moat around your own life, and then you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And you have a few vassals that you created with your sperm, and you're good to go. No, what you're seeing now is what you craved, and you're fighting against it. Like when you were that age, and you were like, man, I really wish people were just more in their civic duties and shit. You don't want that shit. You're getting voted out. That's what happens. That's what happens when you get what you want when you talk about this with nostalgia. You know what I'm saying? It doesn't make any sense to me.
So then he goes on to talk about one of his friends, Ed, who later in life came to visit him. Ed showed up older, balder, and stooped. He was a lot more not doing so well young adult and a lot less youthful possibility. His eyes were the telltale red slits of a practiced stoner.
Ooh.
Ed had taken some job, lawn mowing and casual landscaping, which would have been fine for a part-time university student or for someone who couldn't do better, but which was wretchedly low-end as a career for an intelligent person.
Okay.
I think that's a little unfair to say you don't necessarily know that person's entire life story.
Right.
And you're also assuming he's a stoner based on, like, I don't know. I know in high school he was, but he just shows up at your house.
Maybe he
based
was
on his
crying.
Friend. Based on his friend. I get where you're going with.
No, I assume he was a stoner. I'm going to grant you the stoner, but like I don't think if you get a job and it's hard manual outdoor labor, and you're like, you could be doing your best, man.
That shit's hard.
Yeah, it's just hard as shit. You think I'm gonna go do this shit? Are you kidding me? I saw a guy the other day. He was I was grabbing a drink at like McDonald's because I do this $1 drink. Got myself a Diet Coke. Very delightful on a hot day. This guy was remodeling that McDonald's. He was carrying this plywood, like with one hand. He was on like a walkie-talkie in his other hand. And I thought to myself, fuck that.
Yep.
You know why? Because it's hard. That guy works his ass off. I'm not better than him. You know what I mean? Like, he probably voted for Trump too, but I don't think like our work ethic is different.
Sure.
I just fell into this on accident. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. I don't like how Jordan Peterson continually talks down from that educational pulpit. As a former person that pursued education, it really annoys me.
And I'm a huge proponent of it in the first place too. But
I know, right?
But at the end of the day, we're all doing our best.
Yeah, man. Most people are doing their best. Not a lot of people are just like, let's put cruise control on this life. A lot of people are like, you know, you're battling things that make you not live your most efficient life.
Sure.
And I don't think we need to judge someone based on their efficiency in life, whether or not they're a good person or trying hard. They could be trying hard and something else is holding them back. And I know that you're gonna go into this with like people.
Yeah.
Boy, do I have a lot to say about people.
He was accompanied by a friend. It was his friend I really remember. He was spaced. He was baked. He was stoned out of his gourd.
Out of his gourd.
His eyes and our nice civilized apartment did not easily occupy the same universe. That's funny.
I like the nicely civilized apartment because he says he like shared an apartment with his sister in Edmonton or some shit.
Yeah.
He's like, and I got like a Casio and I put it up because it was like a standing piano. It's like, Jordan, I get not wanting a person in your house that you didn't want there. I understand that. I've experienced that in my life. It's fine. It's okay. Like, the judgment that you've made on this single interaction is crazy.
My sister was there. She knew Ed. She'd seen this sort of thing before, but I still wasn't happy that Ed had brought this character into our place. Ed sat down. His friend sat down too, although it wasn't clear he noticed. It was tragicomedy. Stoned as he was, Ed still had the sense to be embarrassed. We sipped our beer. And they're drinking anyway, but we sipped our beer. Ed's friend looked upwards. My particles are scattered all over the ceiling, he managed.
Are you kidding
Truer
me?
words were never spoken.
If a stranger walks into my house with a good friend of mine from high school, right? We just reconnected. And the first words out of his friend's mouth is, my particles are scattered all over the ceiling. Do you know what I'm doing? Hey, babe, can you grab me another beer? Please go on, because this is amazing. Like, what personality thinks immediately, whatever this guy has to say, I don't want to hear it.
And I know it's a high person in your house, but at the end of the day, you're also drinking a beer. It doesn't seem like...
Just because you're behind doesn't mean you can't find common ground at one point. I don't know.
Nowhere in the story does he imply he was being belligerent. He was just really high. And it's his house. You can absolutely ask someone to leave.
Absolutely.
I totally get that.
By the way, maybe you there's more to the story we're not hearing. That's fine.
Like, it comes off to me as Jordan Peterson being a little
dick.
Tight-assed.
He's so tight-assed. He's like, you know, he's very anal about shit.
Yeah.
I feel like, I don't know. It feels like my dad, when we were growing up, very anal about stuff. But when he was the age Jordan Peterson is in this story, he would have smoked weed with that guy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, even my dad, who I'm not a fan of, isn't this guy. Like, this is a guy... I'm not saying this as an insult. I'm not saying this as a pejorative in any way.
No.
I think Jordan Peterson might be enough onto the spectrum for it to really affect his judgment, his judgment in social situations. And I genuinely don't mean that as a pejorative. I mean, like, Jordan, if you happen to watch this, have you been diagnosed? Have you checked? Because, like, you write like it. I don't know, like, the way you talk, and it's not a bad thing. I'm just saying, like, it could inform kind of why you have these opinions on people, because you don't understand. Like, there's a social implication here that those two guys, like, that guy was, like, smoking with his friend. You know what we should go see? My old friend Jordan, man. We used to fucking hang out all the time.
Also,
I love that guy. I need you to meet that. I want to hang out with him so much. We should go now, and you, my current friend, should meet this person because you're going to love it.
By the way,
come on.
I just want to point out as well, earlier in the chapter, he specifically talks about how he used to spend time with his 2 best friends all the time who smoked weed all the time. He never says he didn't smoke weed. He never says he did. But if he's hanging out with 2 guys all the time in high school that smoke weed, he was probably also smoking weed.
What I think this lies in
which is fine, but when he comes into this all judgmental, it comes off as a little hypocritical.
Right, and it's not because we smoke weed. I don't care. It could be
either
alcohol. I'm very anti-alcoholic.
Sure.
Like, it really, really bothers me because both my parents had drinking problems.
I'm anti-addict to anything.
I'm anti as far as addicts, yeah. I just, like, really, alcohol is visceral to me. It's like a personal, it's like almost irrational for me.
Yeah.
Like, it's but I really think this is combined with your obvious distaste for that small town life, where you try to romanticize it a little bit, but there's this clear, like he resents it a lot. He resents being out in the cold, out in this small town, away from these books and this knowledge and this, like, it. And again, it comes across as, like, a little autistic. And I don't mean that as a pejorative. I genuinely mean, like, I feel like you're having a disconnect between why this person visited you and what you perceived it to be. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, if he was already high, I don't think it was like, I need to bum cash from Jordan Peterson, who's currently in college. By the way, because he's finishing his degree here.
Yeah.
Like, you don't bum cash from a college buddy. You might bum a beer. You might bum a case. You don't bum cash.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I don't know. Maybe Canada's way different. Canada's got all sorts of cool programs over there. Maybe he had tons of money. But, I just don't think you understand why that interaction occurred. Or, frankly, any interaction post.
He goes on to talk about another friend, Chris, who had a mental breakdown in his 30s, and this is what he has to say about this.
I think this is where it starts to get really sad.
Was it the nihilistic philosophy he nurtured? He doesn't back that up, by the way. He doesn't back up the fact that he's a nihilist with anything. He just likes to throw that word around. It's not like he ever... Jordan Peterson's definition of nihilist is kind of anyone who doesn't ascribe to a specific positive worldview like Christianity or Judaism or something like that.
Or
if you're
like 12 rules.
Sometimes he'll call, like, postmodernist nihilist, which is, like, not what that is
Cultural
at all.
Marxist.
Nihilism is a very, very specific thing. It means a specific thing. It has a definition.
Yeah, but he changes it all the time.
Yeah, he does
Basically, this is... He perceives them as a nihilist, because if they weren't a nihilist, they'd already be doing the things he perceives to make a good life.
He works backwards, yeah.
Right. He starts at... Yeah.
Was it nihilism in turn a consequence of genuine ill health or just an intellectual rationalization of his unwillingness to dive responsibly into life? Why did he...
Do you see? Right there is exactly what we're talking about.
Why did he, like my cousin, like my other friends, continually choose people who, at their best, were not good for him? And again, this guy had a mental breakdown. I don't know the real story. Jordan knows more than I do, obviously.
But, well, he uses stuff like anxiety and shit like that, doesn't he?
He's just, like... Is it just an intellectual rationalization of his unwillingness to dive responsibly into life? He's saying that about his friend's mental breakdown, and he's a psychologist.
Which is clearly it's his mental illness in whatever facet he has. Like, I don't know, does this guy have military experience we haven't talked about? Does he have abuse history? Does he have narcotics abuse history, like himself? Does he have... I don't know, he got in a lot of car accidents. Does he have a fucking screw loose in his brain from the concussions? We don't know. You never talk about it. You just kind of throw out that maybe he's a nihilist when really there's probably a cause, and you as a professional should probably investigate that cause. People can just be broken. People can have fucked up brains. That's fine. That's okay. That's part of life. That's part of the human condition, and it sucks, but it's the case. That doesn't mean he deserves less compassion. But instead he gets none. He gets from his friend, by the way, who was his best friend growing up, who you spent every day with. I have no idea where this idea that we should abandon those we care about. Like, I've had friends...
He goes into it more later, by the way.
For the record, I've had friends with narcotics abuse. Some of them I've cut out of my life. Do you know what happened to the other ones? They helped. They got help from us.
Yeah.
Like, it wasn't like, some people realize they have a problem... and they get help before it gets too bad. I've had people, I know people I went to high school with that I was pretty close with that have died from overdoses because they didn't seek help. This guy's actually seeking help. And you're like, nah, I'm good.
Since we're talking about helping other friends,
Sure.
and what it means to be a friend to someone, I guess it's time to get into... So he goes on to say, in Rescuing the Damned is the title of this section. People choose friends who aren't good for them for other reasons too. Sometimes it's because they want to rescue someone. This is more typical of young people, although the imperatus still exists among older folks who are too agreeable, or have remained naive, or have willfully blinded themselves. Someone might object it is only right to see the best in people, the highest virtue is to desire to help. But not everyone who is failing is a victim. And not everyone at the bottom wishes to rise, although many do, and many manage it. So first of all, I do want to point out, I agree to a certain extent, especially young people have a proclivity to want to rescue others. It's a lesson I think all of us learn at some point.
Sure, you can't help everybody.
But as he goes on, he kind of goes beyond just that, and sort of implies if a problem is someone's own fault, you shouldn't help them with it no matter what. We'll get into that, but...
Okay. He also implies... Read that first sentence again for me real quick.
People choose friends who aren't good for them for other reasons, too. Sometimes it's they want to rescue someone.
You ever consider that maybe you're the friend that isn't good enough for somebody else? I don't think Jordan's ever actually considered, am I the bad friend? Because if he had, I don't think this gets written. Not this book, this section.
Yeah.
I don't think the section on friendship can exist if Jordan has ever considered himself to be anything less than the best possible friend. Because if he was the friend he thinks he is, would his friends need to be pushed out of his life because it's gone too far? Now, I'm not saying that it's on Jordan Peterson, or anyone, or me or you, or anyone, to take the burden on themselves and help their friends in any situation ever. But the fact that it's just like, his solution to this is just like, cut them out, right out of your life, like...
And it's, again...
That works for some situations. We've both cut people out of our lives. It's good advice with steps involved, not with just this carte blanche bullshit. So... I kind of can't respect that.
But Christ himself, you might object, befriended tax collectors and prostitutes. How dare I cast aspersions on the motives of those who are trying to help? But Christ was the archetypal perfect man, and you're you. How do you know that your attempts to pull someone up won't instead bring them, or you, further down? So he's saying, literally...
This is...
You shouldn't even attempt to help people. Because you're not Jesus! Only Jesus can do that!
Oh, Jesus saves, only Jesus can help.
He's an archetype of a perfect human being, and that's how he knew he could help people. Because there's a possibility that your help could not be helpful, you shouldn't even bother.
He comes from the same country as Wayne Gretzky and just contradicted him. I don't understand. You shoot every shot you don't take, Jordan. Come on, man. Come on.
You miss every shot you don't
shoot
take.
every shot?
You just misquoted Michael Scott and Wayne Gretzky.
Oh, I was doing the Michael Scott. So, yeah, you miss every shot you don't take. I don't see the value in not trying to help people you care about, even if it is their own fault. Like, what happened? Okay, so your brother gets in a car accident that he caused. He was texting.
Sure.
Are we just done with that guy, or what? I don't understand. It doesn't make any sense. Like, do you mean more serious troubles? Like, your brother bet it all on the ponies and came up short. Do you not help him out? Do you not give him a place to stay? What if it wasn't a gambling problem? What if he was just drunk and made a bad call, man? What if it's one mistake? What if it's one single mistake that could have deep and resonating repercussions? What's your line? Is your family different? Does your family get the benefit of the doubt, but the rest of your friends don't? What happens if you were to do it? Ought anyone help you? Because I believe that the last chapter the last part of this chapter kind of implies that, yeah, you're an exception.
Maybe you're saving someone because you're a strong, generous, well-put-together person who wants to do the right thing. But it's also possible, and perhaps more likely, remember that he says more likely here, that you just want to draw attention to your inexhaustible reserves of compassion and goodwill.
Okay.
He's saying, are you sure you're not just virtue signaling when you're trying to help people?
Yeah, what we're talking about here is obviously very political. If you can't read into it, I can assure you fans of his do. And if the fans of his are talking right now and about to type and be like, that's not what this is saying. Yes, it fucking is. Yes, it Are you kidding me? He just said 1 second ago that sometimes victims, she was just wearing slutty clothes. You know? And now, I will grant that in a universe of probability, right? If it's just numbers, it's obvious you can't be, let's use rape. You can't be raped if you're not in the alley. I agree. But guess what? Not on her. He's also in the alley.
Raping.
Alleys, people walk in those sometimes. You know what I mean? Like, being in your house, wearing your slutty sweater and your Uggs while you watch, I don't know, Weeds reruns on Netflix. Come on, man. Like this is so obviously targeted. Like, all those whiny leftists.
He goes
You know what I mean?
I know, he continues too, and he says, or maybe you're saving someone because you want to convince yourself that the strength of your character is more than just a side effect of your luck or birthplace. Or maybe it's because it's easier to look virtuous when standing alongside someone utterly irresponsible. Seriously?
Really?
You're trying to come up with every excuse as to why someone might want to help another person other than they genuinely want to help. And again, like I said, remember, he's saying these things are more likely. His worldview is not that people are generally altruistic and want to help other people because we're a social species.
Sure.
His view is the vast majority of the time when someone's helping someone, it's for an ulterior motive. And you could even argue, and I would even accept to an extent,
There's a selfish aspect to this.
There's a selfish
Absolutely.
There is a selfish aspect to altruism because sometimes when you help people, that feels good.
Yep.
Because again, we're a social species. Altruism is kind of built into the system.
Yeah. You could also argue, like Matt Dillahunty's, it was not his, but he I think, serves it the best, the secular morality, and how you can base it all on a secular morality that is without God, that is primarily it's selfish, because they use the example in their talk even, and many, many other talks that Matt's done. Like, he did a whole tour about this, where, you know, they had, I think we brought it up before, where they were talking like, it's not in my best interest to throw Sam Harris
off the stage
because I don't want to be treated like that. It's
Sure.
kind of a take on the golden rule a little bit. This is like the opposite of that. If you had problems, wouldn't you want someone to toss you a bone, man? Like, I can't imagine Jordan Peterson has ever not received help.
And again,
Ever.
I understand the concept of there are some people who are just like severely addicted or severely in
Absolutely.
some issue, and if they're not going to do anything to help themselves, sure.
Especially
But
if
the
it's
way
unhealthy for you. There's no reason. I don't want to get the impression that we're hypocrites or something. Like, no. If it's unhealthy for you to be in that situation, fucking, that's fine. Cut it out. Because there's some situations where it's just not beneficial for you specifically.
Right. He uses
and
that
you gotta look out for yourself.
But he uses that jumping off point to eschew any sort of help in any capacity
That's what I'm
for
talking
friends
about.
ever.
And
It's
this
bizarre.
also isn't to say that virtue signaling isn't real. Absolutely it's real. I have a black friend is kind of a version of that. You know what I mean? Oh, I have a black friend, so I can say the N-word to every Kendrick song I've ever heard. Like, in your car alone, that's probably okay. But, like, if he asks you up on stage, don't do it. You know what I mean? Like, because that actually happened. I don't know if you're aware. You're kind of out of the scene.
Did that happen?
Kendrick asked a nice white lady up, and she was having a good time, but she started just, like, saying the N-word to the lyrics, which part of me gets until you find out Kendrick has, like, one rule. Don't say the N-word. He says that out loud, I guess. So, like, I get it. I understand. And I think he handled it pretty decently, but she got kind of flamed a little bit on the internet
Sure.
for a few months back. But, I don't know, man. Like, you just help people sometimes. Like, this is targeted at people who want, like, like healthcare. People who want gun control because they don't want people to die anymore. Like, do you think do you think I'm for gun control because we're all real responsible, and I'm fine with people dying, but I have some sort of motive over here that's apart from that thought? Like, what do I have to gain besides my community's safety, which includes myself, I guess, so it's a little selfish, by having less machines capable of killing us at a rate at which I deem unacceptable, like, or healthcare, or I don't know, what's another issue? Any issue he disagrees with.
Trans rights.
Being nice to trans folks and properly using pronouns or names or proper nouns or just fucking anything. Just being nice in general to a person who is expressing gender in a way that you don't agree with. Like, it's that kind of shit, man. That's not SJW, like, safe space shit. The fact that you're against it is kind of SJW. Like, it's the same thing you bark at them for, is like them needing space away from your harsh words. Nah, bitch, you're upset at their expression. It's the same shit. You're upset that they don't want guns. You're upset that they want health care, but you don't want to pay for it. It's the same shit. You're just offended in a different way. It's not a personal thing, or it might be, but...
He goes on, this is where we get into the real, oh wow, he is definitely a conservative shit. Before you help someone, you should find out why that person is in trouble. You shouldn't merely assume that he or she is a noble victim of unjust circumstances and exploitation. It's the most unlikely explanation, not the most probable. I recognize that people's problems...
Is it the most unlikely?
...can often be their own fault. I find most problems are not typically unidimensional in any capacity.
But most
usually
problems people ask help for?
Sure. They're usually out of their control.
Right. That's what I mean. Like, I don't understand.
I also don't understand how it particularly matters. If someone I cared about came to me, if you came to me and said, like, I don't know,
I have butt AIDS.
Sure, whatever.
There are AIDS just in there.
And you're like,
I need a butt transplant. Give me your butt.
Fine. And it's completely your fault.
At that point.
I kind of need my butt. Let's assume...
No, but what if you could, like, procure a butt? What if you have a butt store?
Okay, I would still help you procure a butt.
Right.
Because you are my friend.
Right.
And in need.
And then you'd be like, don't get butt AIDS again. That's a new butt. This is your strike. You know what I mean? It's kind of like, I don't know, we've both dealt with parents that have drinking issues.
Yeah.
I did that to my mom, who is a wonderful person, who has definitely done a lot of work in the meantime. So, Mom, if you're watching this, very proud of you. Here comes her tear. There it is. Did you see it?
Yeah.
There's her little tiny tear, because she's a very small woman. Anyway, she's done a lot of good work. It was pretty rough for a little bit of time. And I gave her an ultimatum at one point. I'm like, dude, if you don't handle this shit, I'm going to be around less. Like, it's just not a thing I'm going to deal with. You've done the same thing with your parents. Like, I've cut my dad out mostly because of drinking and other shit, but like, so, I mean, it's just a thing. You might have to do it. It might be unhealthy for you to be in that situation. But it's not like I never gave any leeway whatsoever to these people that I love. Like, if my brother has a drinking problem at any point in his life, he will get assistance up until the point it's unhealthy for me to do that. If it hurts me, and it's just like there's exploitation involved, or it's not helping him, or whatever, or anyone, you went through a very short phase in your life where you didn't need my help, but you may have bumped up to it, and then you were good. Yeah. You were like, you had self-control and you took care of it. And you were like, okay, I have self-reflection, here it is. Yeah. And we talked about it briefly. Like, I don't know, like, it's just a thing. You have to...
And again, he starts the chapter out implying that that's what he's going to be going into, just when it gets too far. But that's not what he's saying. No. He's saying if it's their fault, don't help them. He goes on. It is far more likely that a given individual has just decided to reject the path upward because of its difficulty. Perhaps that should even be your default assumption when faced with such a situation. God damn it, pores. Stop being so fucking poor. Yeah. Pull yourself up by your goddamn bootstraps.
That's exactly that. This is a mixture of bootstrap arguments with the lobster hierarchy that we've already talked about. This is not helpful to anyone. This is not how a society succeeds. I know that, like, this idea that, like, if we all have calluses on our hands and we all have marks on our backs from all of our toils will come out on the other side better for it. That is a fantasy. That is not the case. Do you know how many people have broken their bodies trying to make a better life and died from black lung? You know what I mean? Like, that's not just. The universe doesn't just, like, go, well, that guy's a hard worker. Here's what we're going to do. 40 years in the coal mines, year 41, you good, bro. No, that's not how shit works. Are you kidding me? We have to fight for Social Security every day. We have to fight for healthcare to even be an option in this country. You should be very lucky, Jordan. We have to fight for the fact that we even give poor people food stamps. We give them housing. We try. We don't. We try. I try. I vote for it all the time. I talk about it constantly. It's stuff like that. Like, that is not... There's shit out of people's control. There's veterans that come back that don't get the health care they need or the PTSD counseling or just fucking job opportunities because they have permits for stuff but not degrees, and the private sector wants degrees. So we don't even set up our fucking veterans with anything, let alone just anybody, especially the people that buy your shitty book and they're supposed to pull themselves up by their bootstraps by logging into Twitter and sucking your dick. Are you kidding me? This is harmful. This isn't good for anybody. Done. Rant done. Well, it's paused.
How do I know that you're suffering? Let me do this in a... How do I know that your suffering is not the demand of a martyrdom for my resources so that you can oh so momentarily stave off the inevitable?
Are you Dave Rubin?
Literally.
This is libertarian as fuck.
He's literally saying, how do I know that your suffering is not the demand of a martyrdom for my resources?
How do I know
How dare you ask for help, poor person or person in genuine trouble? You're asking for help from me? Fuck you. Get out of my house. Just like my best friend from high school.
Again. Someone who feigns suffering for someone's resource. It's money. It's money or time. Come on. Usually it's money. If it's feigning... If they're pretending, it's for money, right?
I would imagine.
He's not there for your sack of potatoes, right? Yeah. That's a resource you can have, but...
Yeah.
Or maybe he's like, oh, bro, I just need a ride somewhere. Like, do you really think that... Like, your default stance is that every person that's ever asked you for anything ever, help-wise, has been fucking a grifter? Are you serious? Where do you live? What the fuck is your life? Who's hurt you?
Maybe your misery is the weapon you brandish in your hatred for those who rose upward while you waited and sank.
You're just sad because we're rich, you fucker. Are you kidding me?
Maybe your misery is your attempt to prove the world's injustice instead of the evidence of your own sin, your own missing of the mark, your conscious refusal to strive and live.
This sounds like he buys into the... I know he used the word sin here, but it sounds like in practice, in his daily life, he falls into the prosperity gospel. If you're a sinner in any capacity, and he could take all sorts of stances with that and manipulate it however he wants to. But if you are a sinner in Jordan Peterson's eyes, meaning a liberal, maybe
anything he would label as a nihilist, a liberal.
I'm a super nihilist, I guess.
Atheist.
I care so much about the well-being of my fellow country people. Not just country people. Human beings. I'm a huge humanist. I am constantly... Like, I don't know if I could be angrier about the fucking Mexican immigrant situation.
Sure.
I don't know, because... Oh, man. I don't know if I could be angry about, like, shootings or fucking the gun laws in general or healthcare. Like, these are things that irritate me, and it's not because of me. It's because I see people that are worse off than me that need these things to happen so that they're not worse. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's not about me. It drives me fucking crazy. If I'm a nihilist, because I am in his view, then it means nothing.
Yeah, and this is what this is a great example, actually, of what Jordan Peterson does for all of his arguments. It's why a lot of his followers, the first thing they'll say to any video criticizing him is, he didn't mean that, he doesn't say that, because he always includes trapdoors and walks back. He'll make his very conservative argument, and then walk it back and say, I didn't really mean that, though.
Yeah.
And then at the end of this, he goes, And none of this is a justification for abandoning those in real need to pursue your narrow, blind ambition in case that needs to be said. Of course it needs to be said, because you just described literally that, and then said you didn't do that. You literally were talking about people. You didn't say, like, people who are just constantly knocking on your fucking door, trying to get your... He just said...
Panhandle is every day.
He literally said, most of the time, it's just their own fault, fuck them.
And the example he used was his best friend growing up. The best friend Jordan Peterson ever had while growing up was his example of people not to help. Don't be Jordan Peterson's friends, dude. He's not helping shit.
And herein lies the problem of wanting to be friends with people who want the best for you, when you yourself are unwilling to go out of your way to help those people you consider friends. Here's something to consider. If you have a friend whose friendship you wouldn't recommend to your sister or your father or your son, why would you have such a friend yourself? You might say out of loyalty. Well, loyalty is not identical to stupidity.
I strongly believe that Jordan Peterson is the friend he wouldn't tell his sister, his mother, or his dad to be friends with.
Because
are you kidding me?
He's explicitly said, I don't want to help people because I think they're all looking for handouts. He's explicitly saying, I want friends who will do things for me and help me and lift me up, but fuck them if they want the same in return. Because I'm not going to be asked for anything. If you surround yourself with people who support your upward aim, they will not tolerate your cynicism and destructiveness. They will instead encourage you when you do good for someone and others, and punish you carefully when you do not. This will help bolster your resolve and do what you should do, in the most appropriate and careful manner. People who are not aiming up will do the opposite. They will offer a former smoker a cigarette and a former alcoholic a beer. They will become jealous when you succeed or when you do something pristine. They will withdraw their presence or support or actively punish you for it. They will override your accomplishment with past action, real or imaginary, of their own.
So, Jordan, you're allowed to have helpful friends, but you refuse to be one. This is what I'm talking about. This is the hypocrisy involved with this. It's like Jordan Peterson is a top lobster. He deserves the help. He's clearly not asking for handouts. Jordan Peterson doesn't need your handouts. What Jordan Peterson might need from time to time is just some light correction from time. Here's your fucking light correction. Don't be a cunt to people. Like, have compassion for your fellow human beings, because not everyone's situation is like yours. I know you came from a small town, but your friend, every time he crashed it, his dad bought him a new car or some shit? That doesn't sound like an underprivileged upbringing. It doesn't sound to me like you guys were fucking hard up. You know what I mean? You said you lived in what can be considered as like oil-rich Alberta. It sounds to me like you guys had a lot of very hard-working blue-collar jobs that were well-paid, like the auto industry back around the same time in this state.
Sure.
It rings true. None of those people were fucking missing meals. You know what I mean? Like, none of those people were really facing the adversity I think that most people, when they're poor, face. Like, I don't know if has Jordan Peterson ever worried about where his next meal is coming from, or ever had to sell plasma to make ends meet, or ever, needed a roommate besides his sister at college. You know what I'm saying? Like, it doesn't sound like to me that Jordan Peterson's struggles exist. It sounds to me like really they're like upper class problems.
Yeah.
He had a wife or a girlfriend. Although he says he's never been cheated on. He says he married the woman in high school, right? So how long did he have to be cheated on? He's still bitter about that.
Who knows?
I don't know either. I'm just saying. So to me, and I'm not saying that Jordan Peterson has never had a bad day in his life. What I'm saying is it sounds like he has no empathy for people who have more than one.
He also seems to look down on people who didn't escape his town quite a bit.
I understand having resentment for your hometown and stuff. Like, we came from pretty, like, I wouldn't say podunk, but near it.
I would never look down on anyone who...
Just trying their best, right?
Most people, unlike Jordan Peterson, I assume most people are trying their best.
I think most people
because they are.
I think most people really, truly are trying. Even people who can't work. Like people who just need help. People need assistance. It's okay to need people. It's so fucking weird to me that that's a thing we can't acknowledge as a society. That yes, sometimes in your life, even at your best, even at your peak, whenever you feel like your peak is or was or will be, you may need help at that point in your life. That's okay. It's fine. It's this weird... It's like a very extreme version of the joke about the man who doesn't ask for directions even though he's lost.
Yeah.
It's fucking weird. It doesn't make any sense. I don't know why you have such a hang-up about this.
So then the chapter ends with, have some humility. Have some courage. Yeah. Use your judgment and protect yourself from too uncritical compassion and pity, which to him I'd imagine is just pretty much any compassion or pity. Make friends with people who want the best for you. And that's the end. I'd imagine in his head at the end he said, but don't help them.
But don't want the best for them, yeah. I don't understand, man. This is the kind of mindset where why we don't have a universal healthcare or something here. I was having a conversation on Twitter the other day.
Sure.
And I had someone say to me, I don't want to pay for someone else's healthcare.
There's no situation in which you're not.
Right.
There isn't.
Insurance is paying for someone else's healthcare. And I explained to them, it is cheaper if we all, put a thing in. But the real example that got through to actually more people than I thought was going to was if I put $1 in a jar, and you put $1 in a jar, and one of us needs $1, and we shake that jar up and randomly pick $1, does it matter which dollar was pulled? No, because you got the help you needed. We both put in the same amount. I'm also eligible for that $1.
Yeah.
But I don't need the help. So why would I take it if you need it, right? That's it's the same concept, but with anything else. You can say that time is a resource as valuable or more so than the $1. Whatever the equivalent of your time is to $1 at this point, it's very expensive. You are well off. You're doing a good job for yourselves. I'm very proud of you for your speeches and your book sales. You're doing great, Jordan. But you got to know that the people that are buying those books and then are getting those speeches or attending those speeches and maybe paying for the classes you teach, maybe they'll need help someday too. And I really fucking hope they don't ask you.
Yeah. So I think that's it. Next time, the next rule is compare yourself to yourself yesterday, not other people. Something like that. Which, again, title, great.
These titles are fine, except for the lobster thing.
Yeah. Oh, God.
Fucking be a lobster. What?
So, you can always follow us on Twitter, at PapaBirdJake.
You can follow Hugo at Hugo Reloaded. You can also subscribe to the channel and make sure you get your Jordan Peterson fix. Next time we do this, you could also make sure you like and share. If you like this video, definitely share it with someone that needs it. Or, I don't know, share it with H-Bomber guy. We talked the other day. Hi, Harris. I think you'll like the video, is what I'm saying.
I like his stuff. He's good. So,
yeah, I didn't take my clothes off and jump out of the Lost poster, or the Lost poster. I said Lost. You see that?
No.
Covered himself in petroleum jelly or some shit, or anal lube. And popped out like Ace Ventura Pet Detective 2 of the Loss meme. Wow. Yeah, I respect it, dude. I respect it. It's good work.
If you want to send us any books or Jordan Peterson things or anything for us to look at, here's a P.O. box.
There it is. We got I got this sleeve the other day.
It's a scarf.
It's a sleeve, look.
It is a scarf.
Look, you do this. How many scarves can you put in your arm inside? 0.
At least 2 that I'm aware of.
Sleeve. This is a Rasta sleeve, too.
I like that most of it's just like blue, green, and it gets real party at the end.
Yeah, real at the end. At the end, we ran out of stuff, I guess. I don't know. Or maybe the idea here is this is the over the top part of the scarf, and this is, you know what I mean. This is the designer part. I don't know how to scarf. Anyway, so I'm gonna go.
Yeah. Subscribe to this channel. Check out our other videos. Other than that, until next time. Oh, Patreon if you want to help support the show. Can we not Buffalo Bill this? Or, no, Red Dragon. Can we not Red Dragon this? Until next time, I'm Hugo.
I'm Jake.
Alright, I'm gonna help you guys and just end that right now. If I have a mental break, it's not the nihilism.